People decide whether they trust your expertise before they fully understand what it is that you do. And that's the part that most experts miss. They think that trust happens after the explanation. They think that if they can explain the method clearly enough, prove the framework hard enough, give enough examples, list enough credentials, and answer enough objections, eventually the other person will trust them. But that's not how people work. All right. Trust starts way earlier than that. Trust starts before the offer, before the method, before the case study, before the pitch, before the prospect can fully explain why they feel good about you or why they don't. Right? They're already reading you. And if they're not only reading your words, they're reading your posture, your certainty, your congruence, how well your thoughts line up with your actions, your pacing, your comfort with silence, your need to be approved of, your reaction when they challenge you or push back the tiniest bit. They're judging you on your ability to stay grounded when they don't immediately understand something. That's why two people can say almost the exact same thing and get completely different results from it. One sounds like an expert, and the other sounds like somebody hoping that you believe them, right? Same words, different signal. And if you're an expert trying to turn what you know into a business, this matters because people don't buy expertise in the abstract. They buy expertise they trust. So, in the previous video, we talked about the curse of knowledge, okay? How smart people accidentally devalue what they know because it feels obvious to them. They know the method, so they think the method's cheap, weirdly. They know the answer, so they think the answer's obvious to everybody else. They know the path, so they assume the path's easy for everybody. So that's one side of the problem, but there's another side. Even if you do value your own knowledge, and even if you can explain it, the buyer still has to trust the person delivering it. And that starts before the explanation lands. Hi there, I'm Jonathan W. Pritchard, and for more than 20 years, I've worked as a professional mind reader on stages, in boardrooms, at trade shows, with BP, State Farm, United Airlines, working with companies in high stakes business conversations where there's a lot of money on the line. And one of the most useful things you learn from performing live is that people decide how they feel about you before they decide what they think about your material. That's brutal, but it's true. We judge books by their covers, all right? You can have a brilliant piece of material, you can have a great method, you can have a strong idea, you can have a real result, you can do something like for reals, but if the room doesn't trust the person holding their attention, the material doesn't land the same way. That's why performing is such a good laboratory for business because the feedback is instant. All right. If the audience trusts you, they lean in, you can do whatever you want, they're on board. They follow, they give you their attention. You can let tension build. They accept the frame, they go with you, right? If they don't trust you, everything's a lot harder. The same line feels like you're trying to force a laugh. The same joke feels needy, right? The same tempo and pulse feels awkward and stilted. The same instruction feels suspicious, right? The same effect doesn't land the same way, so it feels smaller. Nothing changed about the method. The signal changed. And that's exactly what happens in business conversations. A consultant explains their offer, a coach explains their process, a founder's explaining their product to somebody, a creator's trying to explain their point of view, an advisor's explaining what they see here in the situation. And the buyer is not only asking, do I understand this? They're asking, do I trust this person? That's it. And even deeper than that, they're asking, does this person trust themselves? Do they believe what it is that they're saying? That's the part people don't like, right? Because it means you can't hide behind pretty words. You can't hide behind the slide deck. You can't hide behind the website or all the materials. You can't hide behind the fancy framework. At some point, the person in front of you is reading whether you believe what it is that you're saying. And if you don't, they know. It's weird. People are mind readers. They may not be able to name it. They won't be able to explain it. They won't say, I'm detecting a lack of congruence between your language and your internal expectation state. They will not say that. Nobody talks like that except weirdos, all right? They're going to say something like, I need to think about it. I'm not sure this is the right time. Let me circle back with my team. This sounds interesting. I'll keep you in mind. Or they'll just straight up ghost you. That's the most common thing, all right? But often, the thing that happened was much simpler. Just something felt off. That's it. Not wrong enough to argue about, not clear enough to object to, just off. That's it. And that's enough. Because when people are making decisions that involve money, reputation, risk, identity, or change, something feels off is usually enough to stop the yes. Okay. So let's talk about why that happens. The first reason people don't trust your expertise yet is that you're trying to prove it too hard. Weirdly, thou doth prove too hard. And it's incredibly common with smart people. They know they're good, but they don't fully trust that the other person can see it yet. So they start adding stuff on, more detail, more explanation, more examples, more credentials, more nuance, more caveats, more proof, more stories, more effort. And the strange thing is, every extra piece is supposed to increase trust, but more often than not, it does the exact opposite thing because the buyer starts reading the need underneath all that stuff that you're saying, right? So they can feel when you're not explaining because it serves them. You're explaining because you're trying to calm yourself down by sticking with familiar material. That is a very different signal. And it sure isn't authority, it's anxiety with footnotes. And a lot of experts accidentally do this because they've spent years being misunderstood. Most of their life, most people haven't understood what it is that they're talking about. They've had people not get it. They've had people undervalue them. They've had people compare them to lower quality options. How dare you? Isn't it obvious that they're so much worse than me? Right? They've had people ask dumb questions, right? Like they've had people reduce their work to something smaller than what it is. Don't you see I'm changing the world here? So now, when they get a chance to explain, they try to prevent every one of those misunderstandings all at the same time. But by doing that, trying to prevent every potential misunderstanding, they're creating a new issue. It makes the buyer feel like there must be a reason you're working so hard. And now they're not only evaluating your offer, they're evaluating your need to be understood. That's not where you want their attention. Trust doesn't come from explaining everything. Trust comes from making the right thing clear at the right time. That's it. That's a very different skill. The second reason that people don't trust your expertise is that your identity isn't settled yet. And I don't mean your personality. I don't mean your brand colors. I don't mean your bio. I mean the operating identity you're speaking from, like the core of who you are. Are you speaking as the expert? Or are you speaking as someone asking permission to be treated like an expert? because those are two different things. Okay. And the person listening can feel which place you're coming from. And it shows up like in just super small ways. You soften, hedge every claim. You think, you add, I think when you don't need to. You say maybe when you already know for sure. You're overqualifying the thing you've seen 100 times and you know like the back of your hand. You make your recommendations sound like one option among many when you know this is the thing you need to do. Right? You could do it. You could do whatever. So you're asking the buyer to validate the diagnosis before you've actually given it. You keep checking their face to see, oh, do they like me? How's this going? Is this great? You laugh at your own authority before they can reject it, right? So self-depreciating humor, undercutting your own expertise because you're not comfortable with it. So before they can make fun of you, you make fun of yourself, therefore making sure they're going to make fun of you, right? And every time you do that, it feels tiny, feels like you're not really doing anything, but together they all add up to a signal, which is I'm not fully standing in my power yet. That's it. And if you're not fully standing in it, why would they? Right? So, this is where a lot of folks misunderstand confidence. They think confidence means puffing yourself up, talking louder, being more aggressive. Listen here, Bob, making bigger claims. We cured cancer yesterday, right? Whatever. That's performative certainty. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. Real confidence is quieter than that. Real confidence is the absence of unnecessary apology for existing. It's the ability to say what you see without making the other person responsible for making you feel safe. You'll see this all the time in the performing world. Performers feed off the energy of the audience, and now you can see that they really need that standing ovation. So you feel less like standing and clapping for them at the end of the show because you know they need it, which is messed up, but you know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? Confidence, it's the ability to sit in that silence after you say something that's true. It's in the ability to let the recommendation land without rushing in to decorate it and yes and it to death. It's the ability to know that disagreement is information, not an emergency. That is the kind of confidence that buyers trust. Okay? Not hype, not swagger, not dominance, congruence. Okay? Congruence means the outside matches the inside. What you say, how you say it, what you believe, and what you expect are all in perfect alignment. They are integrated. That is selling with integrity. When they all line up, people can feel that. And when they don't, people feel that too. If your insides are going this way and your outside words are doing this, they feel that. Again, they may not have the language to explain what's going on. They may not know what it is that they're seeing, but they're seeing it. Okay. That's exactly why fake it till you make it is dangerous advice for experts. Okay. It's horrible. Sometimes, sure, it helps people move in the right direction. I get that. But if you build an entire expert business on pretending to be more certain than you are, eventually you create a split. Your mouth is saying one thing, your body, your anxiety is saying something completely different, and the offer is saying something else. All right. Your nervous system saying something completely different from that. The website says premium, but when they get on a sales call with you, you're saying, please pick me with like Chihuahua energy. The content says you're an authority, and then they talk to you, and that's approval seeking. The buyer may not know why they don't trust it, but they're not going to. All right. The third reason that people don't trust your expertise yet is that you haven't done the other half of your identity work. You don't know them well enough. A lot of experts think trust is the result of proving themselves. So they spend the whole conversation trying to get the other person to understand how good they are. But the fastest path to trust is usually not proving that you're impressive. It's proving that you understand them, not in a generic way, not in a I know business is hard kind of way, not in a I know sales can be frustrating kind of way, not I know it's tough to stand out online. That's all wallpaper crap. Everybody's saying that junk. I mean, demonstrating that you understand something specific about their world that they don't expect you to notice. That's when people lean forward. Okay. Because now they're not thinking, is this person impressive? They're thinking, how the hell does he know that? That's a total different level of attention, right? And if you've ever watched somebody do a good mind reading routine, that's the real power underneath it. It's not about the reveal, it's not about telling them the thing, it's the feeling of being specifically seen and validated that your mind is legible and that somebody else can recognize that you're real. The person feels like something private, specific, or invisible has been clearly named. Okay. That experience creates attention faster than anything else. And it's literally what has taken me around the world. That single insight. Business works the exact same way. If you can name the problem more clearly than they can, they assume, probably correctly, that you understand the solution better than they do. That is one of the cleanest authority moves that there is. But you can't fake that stuff. You actually have to understand them, right? You have to understand what they think the problem is. You've got to understand what they've already tried. You've got to understand what they're tired of hearing from everybody and then seeing the same junk, all right? You got to understand what they're suspicious of. Right? Sure, everybody promises big results. They promise the world results in 90 days of your money. Okay. You have to understand what they want, but aren't willing to admit, maybe even to themselves, right? So you've got to understand what they're afraid will happen if they choose wrong. You've got to understand the pressure around the decision, not just the surface level decision to do the thing or not. That's easy because people don't make decisions in a vacuum. They make decisions inside their status, fear, timing, money, identity, politics, potential for embarrassment, their ambition, sunk cost, the cost of change, the memory of the last time somebody promised too much and delivered too little, and all the fallout of that, and how much it cost them in professional or personal or relationship standing. If you don't understand that environment, your expertise may be technically correct and still not matter. That's why identity has two halves: know yourself, know them. If you only know yourself, you become self expressive. You talk about your method, your story, your background, your philosophy, your model, your offer, your blah, blah, blah. But it may not be relevant yet. Okay. If you only know them and you don't know yourself, you're becoming reactive. You bend too much, you're asking permission, you're chasing their approval. You let them define the value and the next steps. You let them turn you into a vendor. Here's what I need from you, Bob, right? Like, well, give me a proposal, I'll see. I'll see. You let the room decide who it is that you are and what it is that you're doing and why you're here. Trust happens when both sides are clear. You know who you are in the room, and you know who they are in the room. That creates authority without trying to force it. This is why the conversation is won or lost before it starts. Not entirely, okay, but more than people want to admit. Before you get on the call, before you record the video, before you write the page, before you make the offer, there are questions you should already have answered. What do I believe about the value of what I'm about to say? Do I believe this person has the problem I'm naming? Do I understand what they already think the problem is? Do I understand what they've tried? Do I understand what they're afraid of? Do I get what they're what they care about that has nothing to do with me? Do I know what role I'm playing here in this experience? Am I the advisor, the diagnostician, the guide, the teacher, the challenger, the performer, the strategist? Because all those roles move differently. And when you don't know what role you're playing, the room can feel that too. You start switching roles mid conversation. One minute you're the expert, then you're the salesperson, then you're the teacher, then you're the pleaser, then you're the comedian cracking jokes, then you're the applicant hoping they pick you. And the buyer doesn't know how to relate to you because you keep changing who's in the room. That creates a lot of friction, a lot of confusion. And friction gets interpreted as mistrust. Again, not consciously. This is not happening at the awareness stage and level of the buyer. They're not going to say, your role assignment was incoherent. They're going to say, I'm not sure, right? But I'm not sure is often the buyer's language for, I don't know who I'm dealing with here. So the fix is not to become more impressive. The fix is to become more coherent. And that word matters. Coherent. The pieces need to fit. They need to match. Your positioning matches your offer. Your offer matches your proof. Your proof matches your content. Your content matches your sales conversation. Your sales conversation matches your actual beliefs. And your actual beliefs match the results you're asking somebody else to trust you with. Okay? So that's when people start feeling like they're dealing with somebody solid, not loud, solid. You don't have to be super polished, solid. Okay? Not desperate to be believed, solid. And solidity is rare, especially online. A lot of people are performing expertise. A lot of people are repeating borrowed language from somebody else. Well, that sounded smart. I'm going to say it now. Right? A lot of people are selling things they barely even understand. Like, oh, ChatGPT, write me a script, and then I'm going to say those words, and there you go. Right? And then they get on a call, and then you realize they don't know what they're talking about. So a lot of folks are trying to sound like the category they want to belong to. So when somebody shows up with actual congruence, it cuts through all that stuff. So you don't need to overperform authority when you've got it all organized. That's the key. Trust is not just a feeling. Trust is an architecture. It's built from signals that either match or they don't match. So if your message says expert, but your offer is saying freelancer, that's confusion. That's friction. That kills the deal. If your price says premium, but your proof says beginner, there's friction there too. If your content that you're putting out says authority, but your sales call says neediness, there's friction there too. So if your website says strategic advisor, but your CTA says book a free vibe check because I'm free all the time, no matter what, there's friction there. Every mismatch asks the buyer to do extra work that they shouldn't have to be doing. And the buyer's not going to do that work. Okay, just straight up, they're not. They're going to hesitate. They're going to put it off. They're going to ghost you if they even reach out in the first place. They're going to choose somebody who's easier to understand. So when people don't trust your expertise yet, don't just ask, do I need more proof? I mean, sometimes you do. I'm not going to say you don't, but also don't forget to ask, where's my signal inconsistent? Where am I over explaining because I'm insecure about who I am? Where am I trying to sound impressive instead of being useful? being a servant for my clients? Where am I asking the buyer to believe something that I don't fully believe yet? Right? If you don't believe you're an expert, I'm not going to believe you're an expert either. Where am I talking about myself before I've earned the right by showing them that I understand them? Where am I switching roles because I haven't decided who I am in this conversation yet? Those questions will fix more than another credential ever will of getting another degree or trying to go to a new market or trying to get a new client. Because the buyer is not only buying the information, they're buying the confidence that you can guide them through the problem to the promised land. And guidance requires trust. If they trust your knowledge, but don't trust your direction, they might like you and still not buy from you. If they trust your story, but don't trust your understanding of their situation, then they might be impressed or like, oh, wow, that difficult to do. Amazing. Wow, yeah. And still not buy from you, right? If they trust your intelligence, but they don't trust your certainty, they may respect you and still not buy, which looks like, oh, wow, he sure is smart, but he didn't really feel sure about that. So why am I going to trust him with so much money if he's not even sure? And I get where it's coming from with you because you understand, oh, this might go wrong, and in certain cases, whatever. In 1.3% of the time, it's not going to work. So I can't say it's a sure thing because it's not a sure thing. It's only a sure thing in 98.7% of the time. But it comes across as he's really not sure of himself. I can't trust him with my money. So respect is not the same as trust. Admiration is not the same as trust. Interest, not the same thing as trust. Trust is what makes somebody willing to let your expertise affect their decision. That's the bridge. Okay. Without that bridge, the expert is going to stay interesting instead of getting hired. So here's the practical thing you can do. Before your next piece of content, before your next sales call, before you make your next landing page, do your webinar, build an offer, run a congruence check. All right. Ask yourself, do I believe what I'm about to say? Do I believe the problem matters? Do I believe the offer solves it? Do I believe I'm the right person to help? Do I understand the person I'm talking to? Do I understand what they're afraid of? Do I understand what they need to trust before they can do something like hire me? If the answer is no to any of that, don't try to ignore it or paper it over with more language. Fix the read, right? That's how I like to put it, because the market can feel when you're compensating, and the market can feel when you're clear, when you're crystal clear about who you are, what you do, who you can help, why, all that. So in the last video, we talked about why smart experts stay broke. It's the curse of knowledge, making your own expertise feel obvious and therefore unvaluable. This video is the next layer. So even when your expertise is valuable, people still have to trust the person delivering it. That's you. That trust starts before the offer. It starts with identity, knowing yourself, knowing them, and then walking into the room with the kind of congruence that doesn't need to beg or ask somebody permission to be believed. So if you want help building the business around your expertise, I put together a whole custom GPT suite for exactly that. So it's going to help you clarify your positioning, build an offer, organize your proof and experience, create better content, and find better client conversations with people you could actually help. It's kind of a digital clone of all the high paid work that I do for crazy big companies. You can get it at the link. It's in the description. It should be the first pinned comment too. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about the reason why so many expert conversations don't get anywhere. Okay. So you might know who you are. You might understand the person in front of you, but you don't know where the conversation is supposed to go, weirdly. So you're going to wind up reacting the whole time and call it rapport, thinking you're doing a great job. So that's where the next video starts, and I'll see you over there next.